You're listening to Financial Advisor Marketing, the best show on the planet for financial advisors who want to get more clients without all the stress. You're about to get the real scoop on everything from lead generation to closing the deal. James is the founder of theadvisorcoach.com, where you can find an entire suite of products designed to help financial advisors grow their businesses more rapidly than ever before. Now, here is your host, James Pollard.
Financial advisors, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Financial Advisor Marketing Podcast. I am so glad to have you here. If you're a new listener, welcome. You're going to enjoy this. If you're a longtime listener, welcome back. I'm glad to have you here. I have another topic that I've never talked about before on the show. It's interesting because at this point, there's 215, 16, 17 episodes, and I've never talked about marketing to Gen Z. And it is a topic that people have asked me about. I've gotten lots of emails about from financial advisors who ask me how to market to baby boomers, millennials, Gen Z, sandwich generation, Henrys, just whatever niche. So I'm very, very glad to have Ben Phillips on the show today from North Coast Asset Management. And he is going to have a conversation with me about how he is marketing to Gen Z. So Ben, take the floor. I'll let you go from here.
James, thanks very much for having me. Great to be joining you today. Look forward to chopping it up, all things Gen Z and financial advising. So yeah, I'll give you a quick 2-minute elevator about myself. I'm originally from Manchester, England, if you couldn't tell by the accent. But I now call New Jersey my home. I reside there with my wife and our daughter. I started in the financial services industry in 2016, working at TD Ameritrade as an intern, pushing paper and making coffees, all that fun stuff. And then upon graduation, I moved out to the Northeast, where I couldn't actually get a job for love nor money, James, sending out those resumes and emails and applying online. So I ended up cold walking. I landed a position at an RIA called Mahoney Asset Management in New Jersey. And I was there for 4 years, got licensed, did some client service stuff, did some sales stuff. And ultimately last summer, I moved to North Coast Asset Management. So we are headquartered in Greenwich, Connecticut. We're owned by Connectus Wealth, and we manage $3 billion across 20 different investment strategies, all of which are built in-house here using kind of a quantitative and systematic approach. I work on the institutional and advisory side, helping advisors, especially here in the Northeast, navigate, the markets using our strategies. So I'm also an advocate for the Gen Z community, helping younger people, get invested, but more importantly, stay invested. And overcome, these intimidating factors of the market, trying to create an inclusive environment to help grow, their knowledge of personal finance. So something like this, these conversations, resonate well. And I'm a big sports fan, especially soccer. So I don't know if you caught any of the World Cup, but England did pretty well. So that's a 2-minute about me over there. Yeah.
So what's interesting is first of all, it's pretty badass that you did cold walking. That is amazing. And you just walk in like, hey, here I am. This is what I can do. That sounds like something I would do. It's just, hey, let people know here's who I am. Here's how I can help you. So kudos to you for that. I love that. I highly respect that. I wish more people did it. When it comes to Gen Z specifically, financial advisors tend to ignore them. And when I ask why, they tend to say, oh, well, Gen Z doesn't have any money. And they say, well, there's a great wealth transfer coming to millennials. And I'm like, well, do you realize where that money is going to go? It's not as if it's going to evaporate. So aside from the excuse, oh, they don't have any money, why do you think financial advisors tend to ignore Gen Z?
Yeah, I think plain and simple, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of it is because, the perception is they don't have a lot of assets, and that can be true. But unbeknownst to a lot of people, Gen Z make up 20% of the US population, 70 million people now, and they have over $100 billion in buying power. So as you mentioned, there will be the beneficiaries of this transition of generational wealth. So I think any advisor that wants to be relevant in, 10, 15 years time, they've got to kind of address this, or at least, start to look at the market. I think one reason is that they don't really know where to find them or how to communicate with them. Advisors kind of struggle with that. There's enough research out there now that shows us how to, approach younger generations and talk about these sensitive topics. So 95% of Gen Z millennials use YouTube. 2/3 of them use TikTok, and 60% use Instagram. So that's where they're spending the time, but they're not actually always purchasing from there. That's where they do their research. So that's where you can kind of plug away and put some content and build that relationship and build that trust, because that's ultimately what you're trying to do. And then executing maybe in person or through a funnel tactic, going into like a Calendly or a Zoom, to have an introduction call. And so I think that's one reason that advisors kind of misshoot on, because they are trying to really dig into this next generation, but how to actually approach them is difficult. And I use something called the 4 C's, which we'll talk about. But unfortunately, the fact they don't have a lot of assets is true. But look at some of the young business owners and Zoomers who have early entries into some of these great tech companies which are coming out of places like California. They have big stock compensation packages, and that's one way I focus on Gen Z is concentrated stock service, one that we have here at North Coast, helping investors get out larger positions and hedge risk and generate income whilst liquidating maybe a big position when they were like the 10th employee at Snapchat or the 50th employee at Twitter. So that's one way that they can attack that market.
And that's exactly what I would do, by the way, is I would look at like startup incubators, I would look at like Y Combinator or things like that. And I would look at these employees. I know a lot of marketing agencies specifically, not to get off topic, but there are marketing agencies that will look through companies that have received venture money and will say, look, I'm a marketer, could help you do this, this, this. I know you just got this investment, this seed round, whatever. Please let me help you take this to the next level. And for better or for worse, these companies that when they get flush with money, they tend to be a little reckless. So these marketing agencies, some of them are taking advantage of these companies and just that they have a bunch of money. But that is an incredible strategy. You're right that they would have the stock options. I mean, in many ways, they get paid more in stock options than they do actual salary because it is a startup. A lot of financial advisors don't want to take that chance. And I think that's a little goofy. I think Gen Z, what's beautiful about Gen Z is that they can grow with advisors. So if you're a younger advisor and you want to grow into your career and you're committed to being an advisor for the long term, you should absolutely consider Gen Z as an audience. So I think you're spot on.
No, for sure. That it's at this time that they need the most help. As you said, some of them are paid in stock, and with the market, falling nearly 20% last year, a lot of them are hurting, and they're actually embarrassed, James, to reach out. So try and be proactive and and help them where you can.
What are some things that you're doing to market to Gen Z? I know you mentioned like YouTube, 95% are on YouTube, 60% on Instagram, 2/3 on TikTok. Are those the things that you're doing?
Sure. So I think, most of my conversations or posts or podcasts, one thing kind of stays true throughout that, and it's education. Now, I think Gen Z want to understand, what they own and why they own it. They want to be part of that decision-making process, that maybe a Gen X or a baby boomer advisor or a client would just kind of want a number at the end of the quarter. Hi, Mr. Pollard, your account was up 2%, have a great Thanksgiving. I'll see you in the new year. They want to be touched a lot more and be involved. So when I market to them, I use a process which I've called the 4 C's. And the 4 C's are credibility, content, community, and culture. So when we dive into those 4, James, credibility, obviously, you need to get licensed to Series 65, 66, to 7. I think the CFP now is a gold standard. Obviously, it's difficult for, just a Gen Z or, anybody to understand what CFP actually stands for. But, if you want to find an extra niche, I'll give you one that I did, which advisors can look into, is the NASDAQ Digital Asset Advisor course. A lot of Gen Z are coming in through the back door, through the crypto world. And that's where a lot of the questions I get, start from. And it's okay, let's take a step back first and let's see, have you got an emergency fund? Have you actually got, an IRA set up? And then we can do the sexy crypto stuff on the, in a separate account. But having those little niches and that credibility is important. Maybe it's local exposure in the paper or on a podcast, for example, or a master's degree. So that's the credibility aspect. The second C is content. As I said, young people want to be educated, and that's how you can deliver, that content through a blog, through a podcast. 70% of Gen Z prefer short form video and content. So think, 1 minute, 3 minutes of little, snippets. And one thing that I think is really underused and underappreciated in the financial advisor community is YouTube, because it's not a profile, it's actually a channel. You can do a live content piece, and everyone that subscribes, you gets pinged. They can go back and view. Maybe you have a section on getting started, there's another section on specific case studies, the people that you're helping. So I think the YouTube is something that advisors should really focus on in their marketing aspect, maybe through 2023 and onwards. The third C is community. How are you actually engaging with your environment? Are you using different points of contact? Maybe 1 week it's a call to Mr. Pollard, then then it's an email, then it's a webinar, then it's a blog, and then it's a podcast. Because what you want to do, James, is advisors want to create super fans, through the content. So it's kind of a natural progression from a lead or a prospect to a client, instead of just going straight in saying, do you need a financial advisor, Mr. Pollard? You want to try and learn with them and help them through that process, so that at some point you're answering questions that they didn't even know they needed help with. And I think if you want to go deeper into a community, think about Gen Z athletes or millennials working in tech. Get really specific. And once you build that that niche, that community, then it becomes a natural progression. That say I'm a young Gen Z in the healthcare industry. I'm learning and growing up to be a surgeon, and I'm doing all that. And, I've got friends in the office who I'm talking to, I'm saying, Mr. Pollard helps me exactly with this stock compensation plan, and it comes through natural referrals. So, it's better, isn't it, than doing a cold call list of, 300 names and just sitting there and just banging them out
Totally.
in the course of a week. So, building that community is important. And then the fourth C, which comes from that, is culture. That's kind of what you're going to shape through building that community. And, it's removing those intimidating factors away from the markets. Unfortunately, the generation has been plagued a little bit with, the COVID crash and the GameStop saga. And, they need to kind of take a step back and not think about this percentage number when they first log into their Robinhood account. What do they see? They see a green or red number. You're up for the day, you're down for the day. Take a step back and talk about, having a healthy financial life. So that's how I, market and use those 4 C's to my advantage. And hopefully, advisors out there can do the same.
That's absolute gold. I would like to expand a little bit more on culture specifically. I don't know as much about Gen Z as I do like millennials and Gen X, merely because the space in which I play, so financial advisors, like independent advisors at wirehouses, like everyone who like follows and listens to me, it skews younger, yes, but it tends to be like an advisor in the 40s who listens to this show and gets information from it. So I am with those people all day, every day. So I know their culture. I know that they're listening to like 90s hip hop and what they like, and the TV shows that they like, and what they're watching stuff from the 90s, and they go back in time, and at least for like YouTube and things like that. But I don't know enough about Gen Z, or as much as I would like to. How would you describe the Gen Z culture, or is there one? I don't even know.
Yeah. Well, I'll tread carefully here, James, but no, I think that when you look at it, they're masters of outsourcing. They have 10 TV subscriptions. They have like 5 different apps, one for, pictures, one for, communicating through text, one for calls. So, think about everything that they do, where they maybe shop at 3 or 4 or 5 different grocery stores, so there's no one-stop shop anymore. And I think that filters into financial advice. And that's why I was talking about building a niche earlier. So young people in Gen Z are incredibly opinionated. They care about social issues and they want to be involved. And when you kind of filter that into financial services, we'll look at the rise in AUM for thematic ETFs, for example. Over $3 trillion now in thematic ETFs, and that's only a couple of % of the whole market. So that's increased 5-fold over the last couple of years. So, some of these individual, gaming ETF or, social media ETF. They care about this stuff and they want a piece of the pie. So there's one stat which I've seen from Morgan Stanley, which says 80% of young investors would invest in a company that advocates for shared concern. So when you think about how do advisors, target that, look at people like Devin Drew at DFD Partners. So they specifically create a platform for advisors to kind of connect with funds or strategies that are owned by minorities. So that's one way you can target it. But going back to the start of the question, I think you have to make sure that you tread carefully on some of the wording and some of the stereotypes that come with Gen Z. That they're lazy. I'd probably replace that with resourceful.
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's going to be the most educated generation ever, James. So
I'm lazy. I'm proud to be lazy. Even Bill Gates says, if you want a job done, find the lazy person, or if you want it done efficiently, you find a lazy person. A lazy person will find the best way to do it. I totally agree with that too. Just like, let me at these things. I've always wondered about the culture. So I'm glad that you answered that question. And I tend to agree more often than not that they're very different. There's a wide variety, more so than baby boomers and millennials, who tend to have more in common. And I think that financial advisors lump Gen Z into a box where they say, all I have to do is just make a TikTok account and do these dances. But people see right through it. And they're like, no, how can you make sure that an advisor is not pandering to Gen Z? Because I see that a lot where it's kind of cringy. And I'm being cringe right now, where people be like, yas, queen, slay, this financial advice is lit. And it's like, please stop doing that. I guess what I'm really asking you is, you've probably seen that before. How can advisors who want to tap into Gen Z make sure they don't cross the line to pandering?
Sure. No, that's a great point. Unfortunately, they are going on TikTok and they're getting, unlicensed advice, about this latest coin or stock which is rocketed, and they think that it's the be all and end all and they're going to become millionaires. And unfortunately, we have to kind of squash that, or, or maybe they learn the hard way, which I've done as well in the past, and not make that natural progression to more, proper advice. So I think one way to do it, James, is, if an advisor has a baby boomer or a Gen X client, ask them to, bring the child on the next call. At least have them listen. Yeah, have them listen in, on kind of the conversation, and think that, all right, it's not about this number, whether we're up $200 or down $300 for the day. It's actually about, sending the kids to college, or, having money for the grandchildren, or, buying the second home, these actual goals that are set in place that the parents have made. And whether that be a Zoom call or whether that be in person, even better, get them kind of look at the environment of a financial advising office, and, meet the advisor in person, maybe do a lunch together. And it's less intense. If your parents are sat there with you, you're going to feel a lot more comfortable than, if you're being invited out on your own. So that's one way to do it.
Hey, financial advisors. If you'd like even more help building your business, I invite you to subscribe to James's monthly paper and ink newsletter, The James Pollard Inner Circle. When you join today, you'll get more than $1,000 worth of bonuses, including exclusive interviews that aren't available anywhere else. Head on over to theadvisorcoach.com/coaching to learn more.
I think another way to do it is, one misconception is everything's done online. So, whether it be reaching out to like a local university to do like a pop-up financial advising shop, and answer any questions that, Gen Z or millennial might have, or whether it be partnering with like a local Starbucks or a local restaurant, you're doing a free call for everybody under, 25 that's bought a coffee that day, and they can give out your card with the coffee or something like that to help them work through that process. So the biggest thing I see, James, is the stat encapsulates it from the CFP board, is that 70% of millennials and Gen Z say there are financial topics they want trustworthy advice on, but they aren't sure how to get it. And in 2018, that number was 50%. So, making it more accessible and being there for them in these times of distress that we're seeing is important, because as many of your listeners are at RIAs, and they are individual advisors. Half of those RIAs in the US were born after 2014. And couple that with 30 million new retail investors over the past couple of years since COVID, on Fidelity, on Schwab. A lot of them are Gen Z and younger people. We have this opportunity, to kind of change the industry a little bit, and revolutionize it. So hopefully, we don't lose a generation to investing. And it's important that hopefully advisors can maybe try a few of those 2 or 3 tactics I just outlined to help bridge that gap.
I think that's interesting. I think that the marketing world and the financial advice world has created this vicious cycle to where financial advisors aren't on the channels that Gen Z wants, and Gen Z can't find financial advice or trustworthy financial advice because they're using certain channels. And what I mean is there aren't that many financial advisors on YouTube, and Gen Z is using YouTube as a search engine. And when they search for financial advice, they can't get it because it's simply not there in abundance. If they search through like Google or something, I'm a hardcore Googler. I Google all day. Yes, YouTube is owned by Alphabet. I get that, financial advisors. But I think that it creates this vicious cycle that financial advisors have to be the first mover here. You have to go where your market is. And no other industry does this happen. Like McDonald's doesn't say, I'm going to be in the middle of the desert. If people want hamburgers and fries, they can come to me. It doesn't happen. McDonald's goes to the busy city block. So does Chipotle. So does Starbucks. So does Walmart. So does Target. Literally every other industry does this. But I think financial advisors have this resistance. It's just like, well, if I'm good, I am a CFP, like they should come to me. And it just doesn't work that way. You need to go to where your market is. So I appreciate you for bringing that up.
No, that resonates nicely. And I think you're right. You got to meet them where they're at. And there's actually 3 people that, I'll give case studies that do that really well. Advisors can go and look at, and even yourself, and learn a little bit. First is Doug Bonepath, who,
oh yeah, he's fun. He's
hilarious. A lot of work on Twitter. Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of his stuff revolves around humor, but that's, the end goal is to hopefully convert some of those people into, clients, and having that standoffish approach helps with Gen Z. The second is Thomas Kopelman, who does a lot of work.
He's going to be a guest in a couple episodes.
There you go. Yeah. So he's a lot of work on LinkedIn, and he actually is very transparent, and has a lot of case studies about how he helps younger people with the finances. And the third is Tyrone Ross, who I've sat down with before and had lots of conversations with at 401 Financial. He is opening up, more of a inclusive talk around not just financial advice, but also crypto advice.
Yeah, he's heavy in the crypto game.
Yeah, so he's helping out, on that front as well. As I said earlier, a lot of, Gen Z will invest dually alongside, equities and it'll be a 60-40 with the equities and crypto, compared to their parents who are 60-40 equities and bonds. So those are 3 people that advisors can go and search on Twitter and LinkedIn and, follow for more, tips and tricks.
Those are awesome people, by the way. I really appreciate you bringing up the case studies. Yeah, I mean, Doug is hilarious. Thomas is going to be a guest in a couple episodes. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't have a schedule in front of me.
Right.
He will be here. I promise he'll be talking about Twitter marketing, actually. And then Tyrone is also very respectable, great guy. And now that I'm thinking about crypto, I think of a lot of advisors make a mistake when they bash crypto and just totally shut it out and say, basically, crypto dumb, and that's it. And they just are closed-minded. And I see that with a lot of things, different types of insurance, different renting versus owning. Some advisors be like, why would you ever rent? Why would you ever have whole life insurance? Why would you ever do this? It's just any form of dogma tends to be dangerous if followed to the extreme. And I see that with crypto specifically. And just like I said, advisors will say crypto dumb. I mean, crypto's a scam. Crypto's just worthless. And hey, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but you're limiting yourself by shutting out this market. What do you think advisors should do when it comes to crypto in order to embrace Gen Z? Like, what do they do?
I think there's a few things. I think the first thing is to get some credibility. As I mentioned earlier, do the digital asset advisor course, whether it be with NASDAQ or, there's a few other offerings out there. it's important from a compliance point of view more than anything to have that backing, fall back on. I think the second thing is first mover advantage in our industry is huge. So, you have to embrace it now. Otherwise, you're going to be, clutching at straws come 5 or 10 years. And you'll probably hear stories, James, of advisors, during 2020, 2021, 2022, and so on, who made those changes and kind of included, crypto as part of their advice, or whether it be part of their newsletter, or whether it be part of their offering, and they're now stood apart, from other RIAs. So another way to look into it would be to look at platforms that you're able to offer a little bit of support or product, whether it be, and obviously we have GBTC, which is the Bitcoin Grayscale, trust, but
there's a bunch.
There's a bunch. So, just having some knowledge around those products, doing some, research and education on your own, so that when you do get approached, by a younger person, you're not like you don't just shut down, you take away the punch bowl. At least, you can discuss it with them and just say, hey, look, this might be 3-5% of your overall allocation at most. Or if you want to open a separate, account with one of the custodians and have a bit of fun money in there, that's great. But this is what we're going to focus on, is your financial plan, whether it be to own your first house or, send, your young kids to school one day. So I think including it is important, and hopefully we can take away those intimidating factors over the next couple of years.
There's just a stigma because it's so divided. Financial advisors just absolutely hate it. And I'm a pretty big crypto advocate. I'll show you. I've got for financial advisors who are listening to podcasts, you can't really see. I've got my treasure right here. People say, oh, crypto is so hard and so complicated. I literally have to just have a 24 seed word phrase. If people who are listening, not your keys, not your crypto, please, for the love of all that is good and holy, get a real wallet. Don't leave your keys on the exchange. That is number one if you've been orange pilled. But here's the thing. People say crypto is so hard, so hard, so hard. I can't understand it. Do you realize I tried to get a gold medallion signature to invest in I-bonds in 2021? I couldn't get one. I could not get one. I had to go to Wells Fargo, and I don't have an account with Wells Fargo. I literally don't have a bank account at any bank with a physical location. I don't, and I haven't had it in years. So if that makes me a Gen Z, then hey, I'm right in line with Gen Z. But here's the thing. Could not get the freaking gold medallion signature. It was so hard. And I tried to open up a business brokerage account at Charles Schwab. I kid you not. The application was like this. I had to read, sign for a business brokerage account. It is absolutely nuts. Then I had to take the application and I had to go to a physical location. So I had to drive 20 to 25 minutes to drop off the physical application or the application at a physical location. They had to review it. Takes another 3 to 5 days. I can get Bitcoin in like 2 minutes. And I can take it anywhere in the world. I can have 24 words in my head. I can go anywhere in the world at any time. People can strip search me and I won't have any money on me. It'll all be in my head. People don't understand that Bitcoin is the first asset in the world that dies with you. No one else can take it from you. If it's in your head, it goes with you. You die. And if nobody else knows your seed phrase, it's gone, period. It is yours. It is the first asset that human beings can truly own. Now, I know I get a lot of heat on that, but traditional financial services is failing in a lot of ways. And that's the truth. And people need to acknowledge it. It shouldn't be so gosh darn hard for people like me to get a gold medallion signature. It shouldn't be so hard for me to open a business brokerage account. No wonder people are flocking to crypto, because despite what people say, oh, it's so hard, it's 24 words and you transfer to an address and that's it, period. So I really hope this wakes financial advisors up. I mean, they will be woken up. Either they'll wake up or they'll get left behind. I just hope financial advisors hear my words and just get rattled to do something about it instead of ignoring it, because it is coming and it's coming hard.
Preach it, James. Preach it. I agree. I agree with you. So yeah, advisors, you got to think about Gen Z. They live their life on the phone. They always have done. So if you come and try to sell them, the first thing they're going to do is be skeptical. And then they're going to turn around and Google the answer, or Google you, or Google, what you're talking about, and see if you're legit. It's not maybe back in the day, you could have gone to a business networking event, and told someone blue in the face and, finally got yourself a meeting, because they don't know any way of finding out more information. But now, you've got to tread lightly and, be honest, be transparent, and lead with an educational purpose in mind. And the crypto side of things is innovative, it's sexy, and that could be a spark, that could be a niche for you in your practice.
Absolutely. It absolutely could, because the demand is there. When there's a story by a famous copywriter named Gary Halbert, and I don't really expect financial advisors to know who this guy is, but he is, in my opinion, the best copywriter / marketer to ever live. He passed away, unfortunately. And he asked a group of people, if you were to open a hamburger stand, what advantage would you like to have to set yourself apart from all of your competitors? And people say, I want the lowest price. I want the freshest beef. I want the best buns. We'll bake our bread in-house. You say, I want the best location. He said, no. I want a starving crowd. And that's brilliant. You want the starving crowd. And I think financial advisors need to realize Gen Z is a starving crowd. They're looking for information. They're begging for financial advice. They want a trusted source. I see advisors on Twitter who bash like the unlicensed advice that comes out of TikTok and Instagram. And I totally agree. Right. I think unlicensed advice is absolutely dangerous. But instead of just bashing it, be the resource, be the change you want to see in the world. Get in front of the people, help them, do something about it. Don't just complain. And I love complaining. I'm a great complainer, but I would rather do something about it. And by the way, big disclaimer, none of the stuff we're talking about is financial advice. You should always do your own diligence. You should always seek help from a licensed professional who can help you with your specific situation. Don't listen to anything I'm saying or Ben is saying about money or investment advice, at least on this show. Seek out your own help. This has been awesome. I do have one non-Gen Z / marketing question for you. And I'm just curious, what are some of the best books you've ever read?
So I think one of the best books I've read in terms of financial services was Story Selling for Financial Advisors.
Oh, that's a good one. All the metaphors and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You if you're an advisor out there and you've not read that, you should certainly pick up a copy. There's so many little nuggets in there that are going to help you all the way from marketing to sales to even, some compliance stuff. So pick that up. I'm also a big fan of How to Make Money in Stocks by William O'Neill. We have actually strategies here at North Coast, which are based on that book and on Bill O'Neill's CAN SLIM.
CAN SLIM, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we have multiple strategies here, that use that acronym as our approach. And then, in terms of other resources, I'm a big podcast guy. So Compound and Friends, with Josh Brown and Michael Batnick, and then Smartless. I like listening to Smartless as well by those guys there. So what about yourself?
Well, I think my favorite book of all time is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I do like the books and resources that you recommended. Josh Brown is also hilarious. I know we mentioned Boneparth earlier. They're both hilarious. I love following the stuff that they put out. So Think and Grow Rich. I think anything written by Napoleon Hill is a go for me. I know people are like, oh, well, he died penniless and he had these problems or whatever. Look, if the material helped me, that's all I can say. I like stuff by Brian Tracy, the self-help improvement stuff. Mm-hmm. As far as money specifically, I like the Market Wizards series, not necessarily to replicate their strategies. I'm not a trader, but I just like seeing how they think, because the best traders of all time, I love how they think in systems. That's what I take away from it. I'm not reading these books saying, oh, can I follow the trend? Should I buy when the line, one moving average crosses another? No. I just like their discipline. And I like the way that they think and how they structure an approach, because I do the same thing with marketing. I like to think in systems. I like to think in assets that I can own and control. And I like to know that I can pivot when things change, in the same way that these traders will pivot when, for example, if they're trend followers and they believe that the trend has changed from an uptrend to a downtrend, they change their strategy. The same thing is true with email marketing. If you see a dip in open rates, the trend is no longer your friend. Something is wrong. You need to investigate what is wrong. It could be maybe you're on a blacklist, maybe your content isn't good, maybe the list has decreased in quality. That's how I approach it. So I do love the Market Wizard series as far as financial services and investing and trading. So I've been on.
Sure, rules-based investing is the way we live by, and boring investing. I tell the Gen Z people this. The boring investing is usually the best.
Well, I like that Gen Z embraces like index funds. At least anecdotally, I've noticed that more from Gen Z than any other group, and I think it is because they go to Amazon. They search investing books, and the ones that come up are the ones from Bogle, The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins, I believe. These sorts of books come up. They read it, and these books will preach index funds, index funds, index funds, and they do it because, like you said, they're looking for trusted, credible advice. Now, index funds are awesome. I love them, but I will admit that just index and chill and a broad-based index fund isn't necessarily the right path for every single person at every single stage of life and for every single goal. So that is why financial advisors need to help Gen Z with their goals and what they want specifically. So I do think it's awesome that they're embracing that investing strategy, but I also am not naive to the fact that they do require some additional help, if that makes sense.
For sure.
If people want to get in touch with you, how can they do so if they want to learn more?
Sure. You can find me pretty much anywhere. It's Ben Phillips, and then it's Ben's Bulls and Bears, on Twitter, on Instagram, active on LinkedIn as well. And I'm also the host of the Gen Z and Friends podcast. So you'll have to come on there, James. I know I interview, investors and who have had proven success and help, Gen Z approach the markets and learn a little bit more about personal finances. And I also interview some Zoomers, who are laying the groundwork for, the way we live and work in the future. So season 1 was last year. I'm looking to start up season 2 this year. So you have to come on. But no, thanks for having me. And if anybody has any questions or wants to, more information about how to approach Gen Z, please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Financial advisors, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. You have now learned a lot about how to market to Gen Z, and I'm so glad that I've finally covered this topic on the Financial Advisor Marketing Show. I will catch you next week.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.